Single mom's struggle exposed. 3 years of laughter turned into an incredible reveal from CEO Dad. Sarah stood behind the counter of the Maplewood diner. The hum of laughter, sizzling griddles, and clinking silverware wrapping around her like a warm but suffocating blanket. At 34, she felt time tick away, each second reminding her of her dreams, her canvas, paintbrushes waiting for the strokes that never seemed to come. She loved Mia, her spirited 8-year-old daughter whose laughter filled the air when she wasn't working. But the constant juggling between motherhood and a job in a diner felt like a never-ending cycle. The noise seeped into her soul, filling her with a fleeting joy but draining her energy. All the while, the thought of Mark, her ex-husband, loomed large, a stark reminder of what had once been and what could have been. His brilliance as a Silicon Valley tech CEO made her life feel like a distant echo of a dream unfulfilled. Memories of him whispered like secrets in her mind as she tried to focus on serving pancakes to the regulars. Nostalgia tangled with resentment each time Mia brought home stories of school, tales of children flanked by two parents proud, ambitious, thriving. Mark was coming back for a charity auction. A familiar whirl of emotions began to stir. Did she still push herself into that space where their lives intersected, knowing each moment held the potential for painful reminders? Yet, the moment he sauntered into the diner, his aura filled the room. Laughter erupted, mingled with soft exhales of her memories. They chatted, the ease of their banter momentarily masking the weight of their decisions. Sarah felt the pang of an old wound, an internal war raging. Was she missing something vital or just sparkling with moments of fleeting joy? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. This reunion hung like a delicate thread, fraying with every conversation. Just as Sarah began to feel the thrill of old ambitions rekindling, the groundwork of her life shook when Mia stumbled in school. A minor accident, the doctor assured her, but the impending wave of worry swallowed her whole. In her child's pain, Sarah's own fears bubbled to the surface. The strains of motherhood weren't just love, they were sacrifices. Choices made to prioritize a life steeped in motherhood and neglected creative ambitions. Losing track of time became a vigil to unresolved dreams that faded like the paint she wished to unleash as Mark offered financial support for her artwork. A fierce storm of emotions tore through her, a lifeline or a betrayal. They had shared values, a belief that hard work made worth tangible. With every part of her screaming for independence, the idea of accepting help sent tension spiraling. What emerged wasn't merely the push for recognition in her art, but the core question of her identity. Would she remain the artist she longed to be or remain the mother who sacrificed her dreams? Suddenly, her small-town diner felt too small, its laughter too hollow, filled with uncertainties of love, ambition, and the tangled threads of family. The urgency now gripped her. She stood on the precipice of decisions that could forever alter her life and how Mia saw her. The impending visit from Mark to discuss their future gnawed at her conscience, unraveling the fabric of her carefully constructed world, leaving her adrift in the storm of unresolved feelings. The true essence of family loomed ahead, casting a long shadow but refusing to illuminate a clear path. Sarah's breath caught, wrestling with the choices ahead as dread seeped into the very core of her existence. As the day of Mark's visit loomed closer, the air inside the Maplewood diner thickened with unease. Sarah found herself absent-mindedly tracing the rim of her coffee cup, the steam swirling upwards like her tangled thoughts. Each time a customer entered, a jolt of adrenaline sparked through her. Would it be him? Would he walk through those doors, the embodiment of all that was once and could be again? When he finally arrived, it was early morning. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced across the tiled floor. Sarah's heart raced, a hard drum echoing inside her chest. Mark looked as polished as ever, dressed in tailored pieces that hinted at success. But as he approached the counter, she gathered the remnants of her confidence, reminding herself that she, too, had forged her own path, one that had not involved the luxury of Silicon Valley. "Sarah," he greeted, his voice warm with familiarity. Despite their shared history, there was a distance she could feel, an invisible line that neither dared to cross. As they settled into a booth at the back of the diner, a million memories haunted her thoughts. The laughter they shared in that same booth, the dreams they spun from each other's ambitions, now felt like whispers from another life. Yet today, the stakes were different, as they discussed how to move forward amidst their fractured world. "Have you thought about what I proposed?" Mark asked, his gaze steady yet probing. It wasn't just a question about financial support. It illuminated deeper fears about Sarah's identity. Could she balance her need for independence with the promise of help? "I don't know, Mark," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I want to create, to reclaim my art, but I also need to provide for Mia. I don't want to be another charity case." Mark's eyebrows knitted together, a look of concern replacing the casual facade he wore. "It's not charity if it's an investment in what you love," he countered, but there was a tension in his words that made her inwardly recoil. He continued, "Think of it as fuel for your fire. You've always had this talent. I've just seen it stagnate behind the counter of this diner." His words struck her like a sudden gust of wind, carrying the scent of fresh paint, invigorating yet frightening. The possibility of pursuing art was enticing, yet it tethered her to a harsh reality. What if she failed? What if all she built for Mia crumbled under the weight of her ambitions? Mark leaned back against the booth, genuine earnestness etched across his face. "Why not come to the auction? Could be a way to showcase what you've been working on. You want Mia to see you pursue your passion, don't you?" The image of Mia's wide eyes glowing with pride filled Sarah's mind. A future she yearned to create, but the cost was steep. Would her child see a mother who chased dreams or a parent who lost herself in trying? "I don't know, Mark. It all feels overwhelming," she admitted, clutching the edge of the table. "Sometimes you need to take a leap," he suggested gently. "Your art deserves a place in the world. Don't let fear dictate your decisions." But as those words lingered, another fear loomed. What if diving into her art meant pushing Mia to the margins, swapping roles in the pursuit of visibility? The juxtaposition felt like a betrayal of tradition, of motherhood. A deep breath escaped her lips as they fell into silence. Suddenly, the air around them seemed heavy with possibilities, each one more daunting than the last. The diner buzzed with life, but here, in this moment, it felt like time had slowed to a crawl. While Mark reached for a napkin, preparing to jot down some ideas, Sarah felt the weight of her future pressed gently against her heart. Was this the moment she would decide to fight for her dreams? Or would she retreat yet again, back into the comfort of her known world, forever wondering what could have been? As these currents swirled within her, Sarah felt the first flickers of determination flicker to life. Yet, shadows still clouded her path. The invitation to join the auction gnawed at her, every heartbeat a reminder of the choice ahead. With a sense of urgency, she realized that this moment could redefine everything: her art, her sense of self, and her identity as a mother. The time for hesitation was fading. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a gust of crisp air rushed in. Mia stood on the threshold, her small frame silhouetted against the sunlight flooding in behind her. The sight of her daughter brought clarity, an emotional anchor amidst the swirling uncertainties. What would Mia see in her mother? The artist or the woman tethered to her fears? Those questions lingered in the air, begging for resolution as Sarah felt the tide of choices rise. What was the price she would pay for her dreams? The answer hung just out of reach, waiting to be grasped as Sarah prepared to face her daughter. A deeper truth beckoned: could she truly be both mother and artist? And what did she need to confront within herself to find the answer? The moment teetered on the brink of revelation, awaiting her next move. The vibrant buzz of the diner faded into a distant hum, replaced by the sharp clarity brought forth by Mia's presence. Sarah's heart raced, a mix of love and apprehension flooding her senses. She wanted nothing more than to be a source of inspiration for her daughter, Yet here was this pivotal choice, the battle between artistic ambition and maternal devotion crystallizing before her. Mia marched toward the booth, eyes alight with innocence, each step filled with energy that contradicted Sarah's heavy heart. "Mom, I can't believe you're finally having coffee with Mr. Mark," she exclaimed, beaming with excitement that felt palpable. "Is he really helping you make those paintings you always talk about?" The innocence in her daughter's question mirrored Sarah's own unspoken doubts. The thin line between hope and fear frayed under the weight of a simple inquiry. How could she explain the profound turmoil she felt, which stirred within her like a churning sea? "We've been discussing some ideas, sweetie," she replied. Her voice remained steady, but internally, she grappled with the truth. Ideas were one thing. Following through, quite another. Mark's gaze shifted to Mia, warmth softening his features. "It's wonderful to see you, Mia. How about we brainstorm some ideas for your mom's art?" he suggested, an unspoken alliance forming between him and her daughter. The thought made Sarah's stomach clench. The support seemed genuine, yet it also magnified her fears. Would her daughter finding any joy in her endeavors lead to more wishes than her mother could ever fulfill? Mia's excitement was contagious, sparking the flicker of a dream flickering in Sarah's mind, the image of canvases coming alive under her brush, colors merging in ecstatic harmony. Could she dare embrace this passion fiercely enough to share it with the world? "Mia, you know how Mommy loves to create?" Sarah prompted, trying to keep the tone light. "What if I put together a few things for that auction Mark mentioned?" "Please, Mom. That is a great idea. You're the best artist I know." The sincerity in Mia's words struck Sarah deeply. The little girl's unwavering faith wrapped around Sarah's doubts, coaxing them into submission. "Okay, but it's gonna take a lot of work. I'll need your help, you know?" Sarah replied, her voice gaining strength. "It'll be fun. Like our little secret adventure." Mia clapped her hands, innocence radiating hope. But with that hopeful energy came a fresh wave of doubt. This adventure could potentially shift their small, stable world into the unpredictable realms of ambition and exposure. Mark was watching, calculating yet patient. Did he see the struggle within Sarah? Did he know the depth of her fears? The professional confidence he exuded sat in stark contrast to the uncertainty she fought daily. Yet part of her was drawn to that confidence, craving to be nestled in the embrace of success even if it felt foreign. "What do you think, Sarah?" Mark broke the silence, his voice smooth yet probing. "This is your moment. You have to take that leap if you want your voice to be heard. The auction is an opportunity to show your work and redefine yourself." The pressure bore down on her as she recalibrated her thoughts. Could she bear the burden of exposure? The thought of failing in front of those who may once have known her success, laid bare before them, was daunting. The shame of defeat loomed large, threatening to overwrite the small victories she gained while navigating motherhood alone. Yet that small flicker of ambition ignited by her daughter's approval began to smolder under the weight of uncertainty. Could motherhood and artistry coexist within her? This dilemma needed resolution, not just for herself, but for Mia, who deserved a mother who believed in something beyond survival. As that weighty realization formed, she felt a shift within her. The desire to reclaim her identity wrestled fiercely with the notion of retreat. She was tired of molding herself to fit the confines of expectations. The yearning to embrace something bigger began to reshape her hesitance into fierce determination. "I can do this," Sarah thought, each word forming like a pact within herself. The commitment solidified as she felt Mia's small hand squeeze her own, grounding her amidst the chaos of doubts. The moment felt pivotal, teetering on a knife's edge. Would she boldly step into the unknown and nurture the art within her, allowing it to flourish alongside her role as a mother? Or would she yield once more, settling for comfort and fear? Gathering her breath, Sarah glanced at Mark and then back at Mia. "I'll do it. I'll commit to the auction," she declared, the determination rising like a tide overcoming her trepidation. Before she could think better of it, she felt exhilaration pulse through her, igniting the restless spirit long buried inside. Mark's smile was everything she needed to see encouragement without judgment. But with her declaration came the terrifying realization of the road ahead, a collision course of ambition and responsibility. The path to defining herself anew would not just be a spark. It would demand all of her to end the process of retrieving her voice. She now wondered, what would this journey demand of her? And would it stretch the bonds of motherhood in ways she had not anticipated? As her daughter's excitement swirled around her, vitality crackling in the small booth, Sarah found herself poised at the brink of transformation. The next steps awaited. Deeper than mere art, this was about forging an identity that could embrace all of her. And as the air thrummed with potential and uncertainty, a new challenge beckoned. The auction loomed, not just as a showcase, but as her performance on the stage of life, where every stroke of her brush would echo her evolution. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of her kitchen, illuminating the tangled pile of paintbrushes and half-finished canvases that cluttered her small table. It was an unusual sight in such a tidy home, a testament to the internal chaos she had embraced following her commitment to the auction. The vibrant colors seemed to mock her scattered thoughts, existing in stark contrast to her not-so-vibrant fears. As she brewed her coffee, the rich aroma filled the space, encouraging her to breathe deeper and embrace the day ahead. Today would be different. It had to be. Leaning against the counter, she took a moment to gather her resolve. The nagging voice in her head whispered doubts. What if she couldn't meet her expectations? What if Mia was disappointed? Or worse, what if she was foolish to put herself out there again? Sarah shook her head, as if the motion could physically cast away the uncertainty she felt. Today marked the beginning of her new journey. With every stroke of her brush, she wouldn't just be creating art. She would be sculpting an identity, a merging of motherhood and ambition. Fueled by a newfound purpose, she gathered her supplies. The paint she had reluctantly buried under layers of excuses suddenly felt like a treasure trove waiting to be unleashed. Every hue was a voice that demanded to be heard, and Sarah realized she hadn't just committed to the auction. She had committed to herself. Settling into her work, she replayed Mark's words in her mind. This is your moment. They became a mantra that drove her, layering her strokes with vibrant colors that she manifested both on the canvas and within herself. As she blended the colors, she could feel the raw emotions coming to the surface, each brush stroke a confrontation with her inner critic. Who are you to think you can do this? That voice jabbed at her insecurities, but she painted over it with bold, defiant strokes. I am a mother. I am a creator. I am allowed to chase my dreams. The more she painted, the more she expelled the doubts that had lingered for so long like unwelcome guests. Amidst the colors and the canvas, a revelation struck her. This was not simply about the auction. This was about allowing herself to be visible again, to center her life around aspirations instead of obligations. Mia burst into the kitchen, her footsteps quick and hurried. Mom, can I help? Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, her innocence adding to Sarah's peaceful resolve. Of course, sweetheart, Sarah smiled, welcoming the unexpected collaboration. As Mia grinned and grabbed a brush, Sarah felt a rush of pride. Each swipe of color on canvas became a shared endeavor, a fusion of their worlds that held deeper meaning than either of them could articulate. But as they painted, Sarah caught a glimpse of her daughter's excitement and felt a slight flicker of fear. What if this exposure put their relationship at risk? What if failure tarnished the joy they shared in this endeavor? Could the fragile state of her ambition withstand the realities that flooded in with the fear of judgment? Mom, do you think my art is good? Mia's innocent question pierced through her thoughts, pulling Sarah back into the moment. Your art is amazing, Mia. Just like you, Sarah replied, brushing away the creeping anxiety. She realized her own insecurities had begun to surface at the same time as Mia's, and beyond the fear loomed a powerful truth. Their growth intertwined. The exhibition of her work would not only represent her ambitions, but also forge resilience and inspiration within her daughter. As the sunlight slanted through the window, the two of them painted, laughter mixing with the quiet focus. Sarah's passion began to bloom, brightening the corners of their kitchen that had long felt dim. In that moment, she recognized this wasn't merely about art. It was about growth, individuality, and nurturing the bond they shared. But with the deadline of the auction looming, doubt still echoed at the back of her mind. The stakes were real, and soon her creations would be exposed to the world. What if the response was muted? Or worse, what if criticism overwhelmed her? The tension thickened as she leaned back to assess their work, her heart pounding with unresolved fears. It would take more than just paint and canvas. It demanded emotional vulnerability and a willingness to welcome whatever came her way. Could she risk everything for this art, for this newfound identity, and still protect her daughter's own journey? As she held Mia's small hand in hers, she realized the auction was more than just a display. It was a test against fear and self-doubt. A stage where the echoes of her past collided with the vibrant promise of her future. With her resolve strengthening, she posed a profound question to herself that hung in the air, echoing the intricate journey she was about to embark on. What would define her story in the end, her fears or her fearless expression of art? An immediate urge to confront the auction's challenges began to resonate within her. It was now or never. With her heart racing, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the brush in her hand like a renewed commitment. As she painted alongside Mia, one thought reverberated through them both. The path to their dreams could be daunting, but it was also beautifully, unabashedly theirs. And amidst the colors swirled a promise: this was just the beginning. What awaited her at the auction? Would her journey usher in triumph? Or would it unearth unanticipated truths? The following week passed in a whirlwind of paint, laughter, and late-night self-reflection. Every moment with Mia transformed into both a joy and an echo of Sarah's hidden fears. Time and again, she found herself glancing at the pile of completed canvases stacked nervously in the corner, each painting a testament to her reclamation of creativity and motherhood, yet also a trigger for her self-doubt. With the auction date drawing near, the stakes magnified. Conversations with Mia centered around vibrant colors and imaginative worlds. But inwardly, Sarah grappled with an unsettling question. What if her art didn't resonate? Could she bear the idea of pouring her heart into this endeavor only to witness indifference? The thought felt like an anvil crushing her enthusiasm. One evening, as twilight hushed the day, she sat cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by half-finished projects. The air, charged with creative restlessness, begged her to dive deeper. Tonight wasn't just about finishing a painting. It was time to confront herself. The canvas before her transformed into more than just a surface. It was a battleground, a confrontation between the artist she aspired to be and the fears that had held her captive for far too long. Pulling out a fresh canvas, she sure her hands wouldn't betray her with hesitation. Dipping the brush into a vibrant red, she felt the familiar thrum of anxiety at her core. Then, as if provoking her fears head-on, she began to paint wildly, almost chaotically. Each stroke became a combination of release and discovery, forcibly expelling the weight of doubt. The colors collided, a dance of chaos that mimicked the tumult of her inner monologue. What came next surprised her. The image slowly emerged, abstract yet powerful, vivid yet raw, a reflection of her uncertainty, layered with the strength that had been forged through her love for Mia. With each layered color, she noticed a shift in her thinking. This was more than art. This was defiance against the muting that had crept into her life. When Mia peeked in, round-eyed and curious, Sarah felt a surge of protection. This was to be their secret, an expression of hope wrapped in turmoil. "Can I try?" Mia asked, itching to join this radiant rebellion. Sarah hesitated briefly, then nodded. They worked side by side, the brush strokes mingling into a colorful commotion of laughter and encouragement. In that moment, Sarah understood the beauty of vulnerability. This wasn't just art. It was a path towards redefining perceived failure. The auction was presented as a risk, but it was also an opportunity for evolution. Yes, there was uncertainty ahead, yet together, they could tackle it. Sarah's heart began to race in a more exhilarating way, grounded in purpose rather than fear. What if she thought of the auction not as a performance, but as a platform for connection? Emboldened by this realization, she took a step back to survey their chaos of colors. The piece was finished, a bold testament to fear confronted, vulnerability embraced, and identity reclaimed. With Mia's tiny fingers firmly smudged with paint, Sarah felt anew the strength of their collaborative momentum. "We did it, Mom," Mia squealed, spinning with delight at their creation. "Yes, we did," Sarah replied, her voice hitching with emotion. For the first time in a long while, she felt hope breaking through the fog of uncertainty. But as excitement surged, another thought crept in. The auction was looming, and amidst the simple joys of creation lay a heavy truth. What if other mothers, other busy women, looked on and shared her insecurities? Would her story resonate, or would it disappear among countless other narratives? Suddenly, she was faced with an imperative choice to redirect her fear or let it outweigh her resolve. The upcoming auction would determine whether her expression found its voice or faded into obscurity. With that realization, determination flooded her anew. This was centered around more than just personal achievement. It was about carving a space in the world for voices like hers. Fragile yet fierce, passionate yet vulnerable. What if this is my breakthrough? She whispered to herself, her heart racing at the possibilities. As she tucked Mia into bed that evening, the looming date of the auction felt far more charged with potential than apprehension. Sarah recognized a call to bravely seize her narrative, to ensure her art served as a beacon of resilience. Every stroke she had painted had planted seeds of empowerment, and those seeds were about to blossom. With the dawn of the auction merely days away, a storm of excitement and anxiety brewed within her. A silent battle, yet now, it felt charged with purpose. She had to be ready not just as an artist, but as a mother paving the way for her daughter's future to be unbridled by the confines of doubt. What awaited on that fateful day? Would she step into her power, or allow her past to dictate her path? There was only one way to find out. In the days leading up to the auction, a palpable energy swelled in Sarah's home, transforming the quiet corners into a sanctuary of dreams and fears. Each morning, she awoke with a tangle of hope and anxiety, both energizing and daunting. The once missed intentional hours of creativity now morphed into bursts of focused determination. Every brushstroke, every hue was no longer just a dialogue of rebellion, but the very language of her existence. Despite the surrounding commotion, snippets of self-doubt clung like shadows, whispering insidious reminders of uncertainty. As she prepared for the event, she felt the weight of those doubts grapple with her newfound confidence, leading her to question the essence of her art. Who was she to speak loudly through paint when others possess a different level of experience? A louder voice. The thoughts clouded her mind, like fog thickening over a once clear path. In those moments of introspection, the belief that art was meant to be seen and celebrated became a lifeline. The smell of turpentine and linseed oil enveloped her as she retreated to her small studio. She pulled down a canvas that had served as a practice board, a makeshift canvas for emotions too raw to expose fully. It was battered, splattered with remnants of past ideas and discarded concepts. Tonight, it would become a vessel for clarity. As the daylight faded outside, Sarah started painting anew, this time meticulously. With the brush in hand, she laid down each color with purpose, threading hints of her story into the fabric of the canvas. Memories of laughter shared with Mia while creating art, of late-night revelations about her ambitions, surfaced. Each layer built upon the last, not merely adding to a canvas, but unearthing facets of her identity she had neglected for so long. The image began to materialize, evolving from a chaotic amalgamation into something resolute. Then, a stark realization struck her. This was her truth, layered in fear yet illuminated with strength. More than an expression, it became a portrait of her trials, triumphs, and the unbreakable bond with her daughter. It was in that vivid moment that she understood the vulnerability she feared was precisely what made her art compelling. As she stepped back, looking critically at the work that had poured from her heart, she confronted her need for external validation head-on. Could she continue to create not for an audience's praise but to resonate within her own spirit? Amidst the frenetic energy swirling around the auction, she reflected on what it truly meant to share her art. Sarah suddenly envisioned the audience faces lit with interest, eyes searching for connection. Each of them likely sought validation, similarities with her depicted struggles. A fierce resolve formed within her. No longer would she confine her narrative within the walls of their home. She began to formulate a plan, not just for her art but for how she could speak to women like her, busy, overwhelmed yet bursting with potential. What if the art became a bridge, connecting them through shared experiences of joy and fear, of motherhood and ambition? This was no longer about self-indulgence but community, her voice joining the chorus of many, in all its imperfections. With the final strokes applied, she looked again at her creation, all its rough edges echoing back to her an authentic self that was no longer afraid. The upcoming auction was no longer an intimidating showcase of failure, but the beginning of a larger conversation. As ultimate preparation approached the next day, Sarah felt equal parts exhilarated and terrified, her heart thrumming with the pulse of uncertainty. What if the very audience she hoped to connect with turned away, uninterested? Conversely, what if they embraced her work, resonating with her story? Once bound by fear, she now stood shackled by anticipation. Underneath the enthusiasm, a single notion loomed. Was she ready to redefine her narrative, to swap her box of insecurities for one filled with authentic connections? But as the night deepened, one question lingered: would she hold back, allowing the fear festering inside her to sabotage her efforts? Or could she break free from that shackle and allow herself to be seen? The following day was set to unveil the truth of her journey, the moment that could either illuminate her path or cloud it further. The night passed slowly, marked not by rest but by the quiet hum of anticipation that lingered with Sarah like an unwelcome guest. The darkness seemed laden with a symphony of her thoughts, an unrelenting echo of fear and hope that tangled in her mind. She could no longer view the upcoming auction as a mere event. It felt like a threshold, an intersection between an old life colored by doubt and a new path illuminated by her resolve. Morning light spilled through the curtains, casting warm patterns across the floor. Sarah rose from her bedside, the weight of the day ahead heavy on her shoulders, but invigorating her spirit with a fresh sense of purpose. The mirror reflected her. She sought signs of readiness. The subtle lines on her face hinted at sleepless nights, but her eyes sparkled with determination. Each colored brush stroke on her canvas was a declaration of who she was, a narrative not just of struggle but of vibrant resilience. In the hours leading up to the auction, Sarah organized her art pieces with an eye that saw beyond the physicality of each work. They were pieces of herself, fragments of her experiences clothed in colors. She rearranged them, contemplating the stories they told, the emotions they invoked, the laughter, the tears, and those quiet moments of introspection. Reaffirmation surged through her as she hung the final piece, an embodiment of her journey, emotions exposing her vulnerabilities, yet showcasing her strength. This wasn't merely art. It was a voice calling out to others. But doubt nagged at the edges of her enthusiasm. What if those who viewed her work found only flimsiness behind the vibrant colors? What if they dismissed her truth, reading only what was superficial? With each glance over the canvases, those thoughts curled around her like chains, whispering reminders of every rejection she had faced along her journey. Sarah clenched her fists around paintbrushes, acknowledging the storm brewing deep within, while vowing not to surrender to it. She had come too far to let such whispers derail her. In a brief moment of stillness, she stepped outside to breathe in the crisp air. Nature's symphony played softly, the rustle of leaves, the chirping of birds, a reminder of life's steady currents amidst the chaos. Truth settled over her like a comforting blanket. Vulnerability is not a weakness but a badge of honor. No artist is without their story, and no creation void of emotion. She was ready as she returned indoors. Her heart beat with confidence. A wave of clarity washed over her, fueling a decision that had been germinating in her mind. She envisioned not only sharing her art, but also facilitating conversations, a space where shared stories could flow and flourish. Could it be possible to use this one moment of exposure to inspire others on similar journeys? She records this intention mentally, daring to think that the auction could hold the power to create communities rather than separate individuals. When she arrived at the venue, the buzz of the crowd enveloped her. Each face represented a story of their own, a myriad of backgrounds and experiences. In that moment, Sarah recognized the connection she yearned for had already begun establishing itself. It was as palpable as the ground beneath her feet. With a deep breath, she prepared to share her art not just for validation but as an invitation for others to engage with their stories. As the auction commenced, Sarah found herself standing in front of the crowd. She felt the familiar knots of insecurity tighten. Could she reveal the depths of her spirit? Would they relate? Or would she remain an isolated figure brimming with aspirations? The stakes felt monumental. But, with her heart steadied by the truth of her narrative, she opened her mouth to speak an unplanned statement of her journey. Would it resonate with them? Or would she stumble into despair once more? As those thoughts crossed her mind, she remembered the canvas awaiting judgment behind her. The moment had arrived. The sound of her own voice cut through the room like a sudden gust of wind. Sarah spoke of her fears and aspirations, the brush strokes that mirrored her struggles, painted with the colors of defeat and hope. As the audience leaned in, she felt her confidence surge. It was more than a mere collection of art. It was a reflection of her tumultuous journey, of nights spent battling self-doubt, and days devoted to pouring her soul into each canvas. With every word, she shed the weight of her past. Piece by piece, she glanced at the faces before her. She saw a mix of recognition and intrigue. They weren't just viewers. They were listening. This was more than an auction. It was a moment of authenticity. Vibrations of empathy crackled through the air as she shared her story, her fall, rise, and everything in between. There was power in vulnerability, and for the first time, she felt it resonate with the audience. Each piece was met with a nod or a whisper exchanged between pairs. She could hear the murmurs of understanding, the shared struggles that echoed her own. Could it be that other parents, other artists were in similar boats, yearning for validation? The realization sent a ripple of excitement through her. Beyond the insecurity, people were connecting with what she had created and, perhaps, with her story. As the bidding began, Sarah held her breath, each raised paddle feeling almost like an affirmation of her journey. With every sale, her heart danced a bit more, a release of fear and a gradual acceptance of her worth. She realized that money was not the only currency of this auction. The connection being forged here was priceless. After the final piece was sold, applause erupted, cracking the lingering tension in the room. Satisfaction swept over her, but it was elusive, masking a deeper question setting in the kind of uncertainty she thought had been dispelled. Was she truly worthy of this attention? Or was it all an illusion, with the art merely distracting from the truth of her inadequacies? As she stepped away from the podium, she felt elated and apprehensive, a whirlwind of triumph and uncertainty circling her mind. She had feared judgment, but it was clear, her journey meant something. The conversation sparked by her vulnerability ignited within her a desire to lean fully into this burgeoning connection. With a newfound sense of purpose burning within her, Sarah navigated through the attendees, her heartbeat syncing with the rhythm of laughter and applause. She found herself drawn into small groups of enthusiasts who engaged her in conversation, each person eager to explore the feelings woven into her art. Sarah shared anecdotes not just about the pieces, but about her life, her journeys, the struggles, the moments of joy, and even the mundane. But as night fell and the event gradually drew to a close, an underlying sense of urgency crept in. What if this moment was merely a fleeting spark? What if she didn't maintain this momentum? Engaging with others brought her clarity, but also a haunting whisper that asked whether she could sustain and replicate this connection moving forward. By the time the venue began to empty, a shimmering web of ideas spun in her mind. She envisioned a series of workshops, an opportunity for herself and others to explore the depths of their own stories through art. But would she have the courage to step into a leadership role? Would she dare to transform this moment into something enduring? As she gathered her things, Sarah's thoughts swirled with both exhilaration and apprehension. The night, while triumphant, had opened even deeper vulnerabilities. The target had shifted from individual validation to communal exploration. The question lingered. The next step she contemplated felt monumental. As she stepped outside, the cool night air embraced her, grounding her. It was time to confront the possibilities that loomed ahead, and the answer lingered just beyond her reach. Would she choose to embrace this new role, take on the responsibility of guiding others through their own journeys of creativity? The stakes felt higher than ever, and with this question hung in the air, Sarah knew she was standing on the precipice of an important decision. The path was unfolding, but would she have the strength to navigate it? The moment of choice was looming. Sarah stood outside, where the sharp bite of the night air contrasted starkly with the warmth that had enveloped her inside. Each breath was a reminder of the vibrant energy still crackling in her veins. Yet uncertainty loomed just as heavily as her recent triumph. She replayed her words, the audience's reactions swirling around her mind, each echo reminding her of how closeness to vulnerability felt liberating yet terrifying. Her heart raced as she resolved to take a calculated risk. If she were to lead workshops, she needed not just courage but a structure that could serve both her narrative and those who might attend. She envisioned a space where shared fears could be transformed into art, a sanctuary where pain morphed into beauty. Could she create an environment where participants felt free to strip away their facades? The mere thought sent tremors of anxiety through her. Sarah pulled out her phone, an impulse nagging at her to initiate something tangible. Drafting an email to a local community center, she hesitated. The cursor blinked at her, waiting for direction, mirroring her own uncertainty. Could I even pull this off? She whispered to herself. The trepidation by itself was daunting, yet beneath it lay a burgeoning flame and insatiable desire to guide others through the cathartic transformative power of art. With a swift tap, she sent the email, her heart pounding not only from its immediacy but from acknowledging her own leadership potential. But it was far too easy to spiral into doubt. What if she did regret this moment? The yearning for validation tugged insistently at her core, echoing voices of earlier days when self-criticism was an omnipresent companion. Over the next days, Sarah found herself combing through resources and cultivating ideas, aggressively rationalizing her vision. She began to visualize the workshop structure, a blend of storytelling, creating art, and guided discussions, all tethered to authenticity. Each brushstroke could symbolize a story shared, an emotion laid bare. She started formulating invitations for local artists to collaborate, encouraging them to contribute their experiences too. Yet amid this blossoming excitement simmered a challenge she had never led anything before. Would participants regard her as an authority figure worthy of their trust? Doubts crept in like shadows, and Sarah grappled with moments of imposter syndrome. What do I really know about leadership? She often questioned, the words lingering in her mind like an unwelcome echo. Each doubt painted a picture of inadequacy, but beneath it lay a flicker, a reminder that vulnerability was a bridge, not a barrier. In a moment of impulse, she reached out to a fellow artist, someone whose work she admired deeply. Tessa was known for her engaging art therapy sessions and had a reputation for creating inclusive spaces of exploration. Would Tessa consider mentoring her? Could she bear to ask for support? Reaching out, Sarah articulated her needs with candor, exposing her insecurities while inviting collaboration. The reply came promptly and positively, igniting a small flame of confidence within Sarah's heart. I see something special in what you're envisioning, Tessa wrote. Let us meet to discuss how we can work together. Relief washed over Sarah, but it was joined by a pulse of anticipation. She was no longer alone in this endeavor, but were her insecurities quieting, or simply hiding until the next round? As the meeting date approached, Sarah's anticipation became palpable, vibrating with enthusiasm intermingled with fear. She questioned how an artist's workshop could evolve from concept to reality without faltering. What if her ideas resonated, but the execution faltered? The stakes loomed larger than before, not just her success but also the potential impact on others. Restlessness settled in her bones the night before the meeting. As she sat before her blank canvas, she struggled to paint, grappling with the vision dancing tantalizingly before her yet just beyond reach. Would she back down, retreat to comfort, or step boldly into the unknown, ready to embrace both failures and victories? The potential for growth hung tantalizingly in the air. The moment had come to confront these fears head-on. With determination blossoming in her chest, she clutched her brush and made the first stroke. It was time to paint not just for herself but also for those who might walk alongside her in this new journey. What awaited them all was uncharted territory, filled with both promise and risk. The tension simmered, and Sarah could feel the real challenge beginning to unfold. The morning of the auction dawned bright, the sun spilling golden light into Sarah's cluttered kitchen, where paintbrushes still lay scattered. Today marked a culmination of all her hard work, the canvases she had poured her soul into, layered with both her fears and hopes, would finally be seen. As she prepared Mia's breakfast, the small girl buzzed with excitement in a way that reminded Sarah of her own long-buried enthusiasm. "Are you ready, Mom? Are you going to win?" Mia asked, eyes wide with anticipation. Sarah paused, her heart hammering in her chest. Win? The stakes felt enormous, yet it wasn't about winning. It was about connection. She needed to remember that this event was about more than just rushing toward a finish line. It was about her story, her journey. She offered her daughter a smile. "I'm ready to share my art with everyone." As they drove to the venue, Sarah's heart raced with anticipation as well as anxiety. Each brushstroke in her work represented a step forward. But what if she faltered in front of this crowd? Could she hold onto the courage and resolve she had nurtured? She wasn't just a mother revealing her art. She was a woman reclaiming her identity. Upon arriving, the atmosphere in the auction venue buzzed with energy. Artwork adorned the walls, each piece teeming with stories waiting to be told. Sarah felt a rush of empowerment. She had a voice in this room. Even as her knees trembled slightly, she stood tall, welcoming a flood of possibilities. The auction began, and with each piece presented, Sarah could feel her own insecurities begin to surge. What if no one connected with her work? The thought threatened to spiral her back into doubt. She clutched Mia's hand tightly, drawing strength from the warmth of her daughter beside her. When it came time to showcase her pieces, every word that left her lips felt like a confession. An unveiling of her journey, the struggles of being a single mother, the vibrant joy of painting, and the insecurities she had battled. As she spoke, her vulnerabilities transformed into strength, resonating deeply with the audience. With each authentic moment shared, she could feel the collective understanding wash over the room. After her presentation, participants approached her, their eyes brimming with encouragement. Many expressed how much they resonated with her words, with the stories they saw reflected in her art. Slowly, validation filled the spaces that doubt had previously occupied. The auction unfolded with excitement. Each canvas brought a wave of bids, reaffirmations that Sarah's vulnerability had struck a chord. The sound of paddles being raised became a symphony of approval, a celebration of her journey. But more than the bids, it was the conversations that flourished, moments where connection and shared experiences opened up like boundless horizons. As the final piece was acquired, applause erupted, echoing against the walls, and tears pricked the corners of Sarah's eyes. She had shared her story and turned it into empowerment, not just for herself but to forge a path for others. How liberating the experience felt. She had not only reclaimed her identity but had also built bridges with those who shared similar struggles. Spurred by an electrifying fervor, the evening concluded, but it left behind a powerful realization. This was not merely the end of her solitary journey but an invitation for collective exploration. In the weeks that followed, Sarah kept her momentum, mobilizing her energy into workshop sessions crafted for mothers, or anyone grappling with the balance of life and creativity. She felt invigorated by each individual who showed up, who shared their stories and art, expanding the vision of a supportive community, stitched together by shared vulnerabilities. While the shadows of self-doubt lingered occasionally at the edges of her consciousness, she learned to welcome them as part of her evolving narrative. Through her art and leadership, she had cultivated a solid confidence and recognized competence that radiated beyond the canvas. She was a mother and an artist, each identity intertwining beautifully as she watched Mia participate alongside her. The clarity of her goals shone brightly. Sarah finally understood that nurturing her passions didn't detract from motherhood but enriched it. She had shown her daughter that ambition and love could flourish together. Emboldened by her achievements, Sarah resolved to continue pursuing her dreams while steadfastly nurturing that bond with Mia. The auction had heralded the dawn of something new, an adventure steeped in purpose, creativity, and profound connection. There was still more to explore, and her heart swelled with excitement at the potential of what lay ahead and her newfound sense of self. Sarah had conquered fear and turned it into her greatest ally, proving that she deserved to dream while achieving those dreams. The journey before her was now vibrant with possibilities, and she was ready to embrace every moment. Don't wait even one more second to share this with friends who need to see this conclusion. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending.